Sport Performance Centre and is also the Deputy Chair of the Scottish Handball Association. And finally, we also have Keir Hunter with us today. He is the goalkeeper for Livingston Handball Club here in Scotland and also the coach of the Heriot Watt Student Handball Club at Oriam. So welcome. Thank you very much for joining me today, both of you. I'm looking forward to having a chat through facilities. So I think we'll just kind of get started. So Melissa, do you know, for the benefit of those outside of Scotland, obviously domestically, Oriam is quite a big name on campus. I was hoping, could you be able to tell us a little bit about Oriam, what it is, and a little bit more about what happens there?
Yeah, absolutely, Julia. Firstly, thank you very much for saying that Oriam is a big name domestically. That's great. And yeah, thanks for having me today. It's great to be involved in this and to showcase the excellent partnership that we as Oriam have with the Scottish Handball Association. So yeah, for those who don't know, Oriam's been around for coming up for 5 years now. So we opened our doors in August 2016. And sort of a bit of history around how we came about. There was actually what was known as the McLeish report into Scottish football at the time. And that came out with quite a lot of findings to say that, you know, in order to establish a good performance environment, you need to create a home for athletes to be able to go and to train in that real kind of performance world-class environment. So the Scottish government kind of, you know, listened to that and said, right, you know, we'll invest some money into building that type of facility within Scotland, because, you know, we felt at that point it was really lacking. And there was quite a wide consultation with different sports across the country to say, you know, what would sports need. And, you know, the outcomes of that consultation were very much quite heavily weighted towards team sport environments. And they were saying that, you know, there wasn't a lot of indoor training facilities for team sports to allow them to train in what we all probably know as quite wild Scottish weather sometimes. So I think Sport Scotland then took quite a bit of a lead and said, right, we want to take bids for a national performance centre that was going to address the needs that were coming out of both the McLeish report, but also the consultation through the sports. So Heriot Watt, as an institution at the time, had a sports facility, but definitely took it on themselves to say that they wanted to bid to hope to be the home for this National Performance Centre. So they very much partnered up with the university themselves, the City of Edinburgh Council, and they put in a proposal to be the host of this National Performance Centre and were successful. So altogether, a collective investment from the university, Heriot Watt University itself, from the City of Edinburgh Council and through the government, there was a £33 million investment that went into building what we know as today as Oriam, as Scotland's National Performance Centre. You know, and I think we've worked closely since we opened back in 2016 with some key partners, Scottish Handball being one of them, but you know, we work with the Scottish FA, Scottish Rugby, Hearts Football Club, who are an anchor tenant, Scottish Squash, who are based here predominantly, and Scotland through the East Regional Institute, who have institute athletes who are based out of Oriam. So yeah, we work really closely with our performance partners to provide what we consider to be world-class facilities and a world-class performance environment. And I think, you know, lastly, I would say that we aren't just a performance centre though. I think we did we rolled out a concept of the Our Oriam brand back in 2019, which covered what we consider our 7 key audiences. So performance absolutely are one of those. Students are a huge part of that, you know, engaging with the university and community through the students, and hopefully Keir will kind of give you a bit of a flavour of how that feels on a handball setting. Our community membership, so we have a lot of members of the local community who come and use us as a gym and for sport. Our staff, you know, we consider them as an absolute key to the success of what we're trying to do. Kids and community sport, so trying to deliver grassroots sport and develop young people. Events, we're quite a key event venue for the City of Edinburgh. and for a lot of, you know, more international events, and obviously our funding partner. So we're very much very closely linked with the university still, and with some links to the City of Edinburgh Council to make sure that we're addressing their needs. So we do hope that we work across all of our 7 key audiences to deliver facilities and services that are world class and that will inspire our communities, you know, to engage with us and to take part in sport and activity. So yeah, that's hopefully a little bit of a flavour about who we are and how we became to be the National Performance Centre.
Brilliant, thank you, Melissa. Yeah, that was so interesting. And obviously, you know, from your explanation there, it's quite obvious that Oriam is, you know, world-class facilities, but kind of open for everyone to access. So our collaboration as being quite a small governing body in Scotland, Handball, how did that kind of come around in terms of that partnership then? Because obviously the facility is just fantastic.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, you know, you're right. Sometimes people can be a bit put off by the shiny, you know, the shiny building and the fact that we're in Scotland's Scotland Sports Performance Centre, and they think, oh, that must only be for performance athletes or for, you know, big governing bodies. But you're absolutely right. Being a slightly smaller governing body, Handball are still an absolute key partner for us. And the collaboration very much came about, as I said, when that consultation happened, you know, even before a spade hit the ground, they spoke with different sports and said, what are you looking for, what are you lacking, and the team sport angle came from, you know, very much team sport, saying we don't have a lot of indoor facilities that are big enough for us to bring our activity and our competition, you know, to one venue. And Oriam was very much wanted to provide that home for those types of sports. So, you know, Scottish Handball engaged, you know, so proactively at that time in those conversations, and we're very, you know, Stevie was very keen to say, right, we want to create a home for handball in Scotland, and we want to create somewhere that is the focal point for the sport. And that collaboration has just grown from there. You know, over the last sort of 4 or 5 years, we've just really worked hard to, as a facility, be able to provide what the sport needs. But from a sports perspective, they've really engaged in being able to call Oriam their home, bring, you know, their competition, their performance programs, you know, refereeing, coach development, you know, the wider aspect of what you would want to see a partnership be over that time. So you know, the facility is really, there is a really strong partnership there between the facility and the governing body. And then I suppose on a personal front, you know, I was approached by Stevie and Ian a couple of years ago to join the handball board, and that was very much a personal development for myself. But I think it did allow me to combine my kind of Oriam hat and my role within Oriam, but also my kind of own personal development and my own personal desire to see handball grow as a small sport, and I knew the potential that it has. You know, there's huge reach for handball across Europe and wider, and I think that's something that Scotland can learn from. So yeah, it's been great to be involved on the board, and you know, taking on the deputy chair role recently has been another step for me. So I do have that kind of dual desire to see the partnership with Oriam develop, but also for me to see the sport develop, which I think is definitely we're going to see in the years to come.
Yeah, and I think from our side as well, obviously partnership's always the kind of hot word in these kind of conversations, but it couldn't be, you know, more true in terms from our side of things. You know, we chose to stick around with Oriam because we see this as a, you know, a really good long-term development potential, and you know, we'd far rather have that kind of long-term partnership relationship where it's mutually beneficial for both us and the facility, rather than it being some sort of transactional relationship. And you know, we've got to know the staff really well at Oriam, and they're all fantastic, so that makes it really easy for us to work with you guys as a partner, because it is we're trying to achieve, I think, the same end goals.
Absolutely, yeah.
Brilliant. So you kind of touched on some of the events that we kind of host at Oriam, and obviously from the kind of Oriam perspective of a staff kind of view, what sort of things do you see happening at the moment? It's happened in the past, but what kind of also things do you think that we could collaborate on in the future?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you know, obviously the last sort of 18 months has been challenging, and we know, you know, because of the pandemic, we've not seen a lot of activity. But I think previous to that, as I said, there was a huge commitment from from SHA to bring, almost lock, stock and barrel a lot of their activity and, their competitive activity on a national, but also a regional level to Oriam. So, we've hosted a number of, Scottish Cup finals across all the different age groups. We've had British playoffs. We were lucky enough to do an international tie back in 2019.
Keir will know about that.
Yeah, Jim can give us some insight into that, having played in it himself. So, that was great. It was brilliant for us to host that type of event. And I think we've definitely seen over the last sort of four or 5 years, we've definitely seen a growth in the engagement and the excitement around those bigger sort of, cup finals or British playoffs, where before it was maybe 2 teams on court, and that was it. Whereas I think Oriam can definitely add that extra value because we've got the show court, we've got the big sports hall, we've got the ability to have bleacher seating, and I think at that Livingston match there was all 6 of our bleachers were out and they were pretty close to being full. So there's definitely an opportunity for us to, as a facility, not just host a match but really be able to drive people's interest and enthusiasm and create an atmosphere around those events, which I only see us growing and developing over the next, however long. And I think, we'll always have that commitment to deliver, Scottish handball activity, whether that be, Scottish playoffs or, tournaments or events or, whatever. But I think in terms of aspiration, I know Stevie and I have talked about, we'd love to host a Commonwealth tournament. We'd love to, really host bigger and more further reaching tournaments, both to bring people, to build on the Scottish handball brand and show people that handball in Scotland is developing and is growing. But obviously from a Oriam perspective, that opens up huge opportunities for us to engage with partners across Europe. And, again, Stevie's great at seeing that mutual benefit to a partnership. And I think if we can deliver that on behalf of handball, that's great. But from an Oriam perspective, that then allows us to work with handball clubs across the world, potentially to say, we can host you in a performance environment for, a pre-season type camp, or if you want to come and have some activity over in Scotland. And I think a lot of people feel that Scotland is quite a draw. Edinburgh's a lovely city, and there is definitely a draw there. So yeah, there's been huge improvements or huge development, in what we've hosted over the last few years, and I think that's only grow in the future, and I'm really excited by that from a facility perspective. And I think handball or the SHA certainly hopefully is as well, and there's a huge engagement in that, which is great.
Absolutely, yeah. So if anyone out there is listening, come to Oriam, come and play over across Europe. We want to have you in Edinburgh.
Definitely.
Turning back to Keir, obviously we mentioned a little bit about the kind of international matches that we've hosted at Oriam and the potential for more international matches to be hosted. But tell us about your experience, Keir, of kind of walking out into that international tie, when Livingston did take part in the Challenge Cup back in 2019 in such a phenomenal venue.
Yeah, so I think, obviously there's a lot of excitement as a player. You're nervous, but I think the great thing just about Oriam as a venue, obviously, is the capacity for, fans. I think it's 300 the capacity of the bleachers, and obviously, coming out in front of that is quite a sizable crowd, and the hall generates quite a good atmosphere. And I've found the same, when I'm playing youth matches with Scotland. It's the same thing. It creates a good atmosphere in the hall, and I think a lot of the time it sounds like, on the court anyway, 200 fans sounds like a lot of people. So yeah, I think it's great as a player to know that if we are as Livingston hosting a European match against sides that are professional or semi-professional, and have those kind of high quality facilities on tap. It is really good for us to know that, we've got Oriam on our doorstep, and that can provide a genuinely world class facility in terms of court, and as well the changing rooms, cryotherapy suite, and with Scotland teams when I was younger, getting the chance, as all the kids do coming through the Scotland set up to use the gym as well, the performance gym and things, and that's just a great facility. So yeah, from a player, it's ideal. It's just exactly what we would look for. As you know, I think for most of my colleagues, teammates, they would say the same.
Yeah, exactly. It's just a brilliant experience overall. And I suppose as well, Keir, we're lucky in Scotland to have an organisation of Scottish student sport to look after, our Scottish sporting students, and they're known as SSS. So, Keir, tell me a little bit more about kind of the link sort of to SSS through kind of Heriot-Watt Uni, and also the link to Oriam, and how you hope that handball might kind of further develop in the student community in Scotland.
Yeah, so I mean, we at Heriot-Watt, have built a handball club, and certainly without Oriam, being there in the facility, I don't think we could have done that. It is a big draw for international students when they come and they see, the facility that it is. But yeah, I mean, we've built a handball club. I think it's in its fourth year now, Matt. So yeah, it'll be 4 years. And in that time, we've had, sides in the quarter-final of the British Universities Championships. We've been very competitive in the league and the cup. So that's been something that's been very, very beneficial for us, having Oriam there. And yeah, I mean, it's great. You can get the international student community involved, and that's perfect because it also inspires, people to come and try the sport.
Yeah.
And the other thing as well, obviously, being recognised properly by BUCS now, our British University sport. So, hopefully a competition this summer, which is going to be the first one that is officially recognised, where previously they were kind of trial events. So that's a really exciting thing for us as a club, Heriot-Watt Handball Club moving forward as well, just to get that kind of opportunity, and definitely having the facility of Oriam to train and base matches at is incredibly helpful for that.
Yeah, and I think for us as well, from a kind of SHA angle, having the university so engaged in the game is really beneficial to us, because especially with those international students, as you mentioned, it's quite a pool. Obviously, the sport is big in Europe, but not as big as we'd want it to be in Scotland at the moment. So having that kind of rooted knowledge that's coming across from Europe, and having those players to come and help us, and also for the ones that have come through the Scottish setup, people that were in our primary leagues, when they were younger, and are leading the university clubs, which is really nice to see. So being able to have that kind of really strong root at the university will help us kind of grow wider into the community, and it can only be of benefit for us. So it's very exciting, and we're really grateful to have Oriam as a facility, but also really grateful to have the university students that are so, and college students that are so motivated to get involved in the sport, because it is just a brilliant sport. Thanks, Keir, for that. I'm going to switch back to Melissa. I've just got a quick question to, obviously, kind of around about the sort of title of the conference as a whole. Obviously, we're talking about beyond winning and losing, and a little bit more about collaboration for kind of more important results. So how do you think handball and other sports can kind of work together to improve access to quality facilities, especially those indoors, because obviously it's such a scarcity here in Scotland?
Yeah, definitely. And I think, I talked about some of the reasoning behind why Oriam came to be. And, that the feedback was at that time that indoor facilities were essential, and it was coming from quite a lot of team sport background. But I think anybody would be naive to think that we've built a £33 million Scotland Sports Performance Centre, so we've solved that problem. It's just not the case. I think absolutely Scotland, albeit a small country, there are still clubs, communities, people who want to engage in handball and other sports who are across this country, and we have to be able to give them the opportunity to do that. And I think, actually, very interestingly and topically, COVID has shone a bit of a light on that. I think the structure of how facilities are managed across the country, whether that be within local authorities, within schools, within universities and colleges. I think that has had a bit of a light shone on it. I think from an Oriam perspective, we've been extremely proud in how we have kind of almost, weathered the storm of COVID, and we've been able to, through our different partnerships and the fact that we do have, a collaborative approach with different groups, we've been able to say, right, what activity can we continue? And from a performance perspective, we've seen performance sport continue throughout certainly this lockdown. So as a facility, we have remained open and we've remained available for those performance groups. And I think that type of approach from a facility perspective is key. And I think we need to really be lobbying people to say, right, that's the approach we need to take moving forward. We absolutely, whether it is a school facility, whether it's a local authority facility, or a private facility, we need to be taking that collaborative approach to say, right, what can a facility deliver? What are the needs of the sport or the activity, and how do we make that happen? And I think that sort of argument and making that case is really important. And I don't think we've got there yet across Scotland. I think one of the other things I would say from a multi-sport perspective, as a multi-sport facility, is you do have to take on board and consider the different needs of the different sports, but try to kind of transcend that and say, right, let's bring everyone together. We, again, when you think about it on the surface, Oriam, Scottish FA, Scottish Rugby are probably two of the biggest governing bodies in Scotland, and you might think, well, they're partners of Oriam and they get more priority than anyone else, but it's not the case. Yes, there is a prioritisation, and yes, there is a conversation to be had about usage and other things, but it's very much right from the get-go, it was established that we were always going to be a multi-sport facility, and we will remain so. And anybody coming into our environment, has to understand that. There are single sport facilities, St George's Park, for example, down in England, which is solely focused on football, and that's all they do. But that, I don't think, ever was the right thing for us, and I don't think ever will be the right approach, within Scotland. And I think it's definitely that collaboration across sport. There's so much you can learn from different sports, and there's so many shared challenges, shared opportunities that can be exposed through working together. So I think from a facility perspective, we see it as hugely important, as a key aspect of being able to develop the sport that we all love, but just generally getting people involved and providing access to the people who need it, whether that be us at Oriam being able to be open to lots of different groups, not just performance, or whether that be across the country, us saying, right, how do we open up facilities to make them accessible to different groups? So it's a hugely important thing, and I think we need to work together to solve it for sure. And I think this partnership with Handball is great and is demonstrating how that can work. And I think hopefully that'll get picked up, and through exposure we can continue to have those conversations.
Brilliant. Yeah, thank you very much, Melissa, and thank you very much, Keir. That's it from me in terms of questions. But it was so nice to have you both involved. Obviously, we've got some big challenges still kind of lying ahead in terms of developing handball in Scotland. But it's absolutely brilliant to have such fantastic people such as you pioneering the cause for us and continue to develop the sport in Scotland. And I want to say a massive thank you as well to those that are listening at home, and I do hope that you take the opportunity to enjoy some of the other sessions that we have lined up for you across the 2 days. Thank you very much.